Thank you everyone for joining us today for the
Yeah,
Hair Art Workshop. This event is in conjunction with the current exhibition, Women's Domestic Artistries, 1860 to 1910 at the Farmhouse Museum on Iowa State University's Central Campus in Ames, Iowa. The exhibition will run through October 2025. And you all are from all over the place, and so hopefully you get a chance to come to Iowa and see our exhibition. But if not, I understand. Support from the exhibition and this lecture is generously provided by Carol Pletcher. Sandra, our speaker today, is a hairwork artist living in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. She's self-taught and creates art from human hair based on centuries-old crafts of the Victorian hairwork tradition. Sandra has led hair art workshops in collaboration with various local museums, as well as the Victorian Studies Association of Western Canada. Passionate about local history, Sandra serves as chair of the board for Seven Oaks House Museum and Ross House Museum in Winnipeg, where she lives with her partner, two children, and most importantly, a kitty cat. She holds an honors BA in rhetoric and gender studies from the University of Winnipeg. So this workshop is a free workshop. We are recording it. You will be provided with your registration a link so that you can revisit the workshop. As Steve and I were chatting earlier, some of us are visual learners and a little slow on the uptake. And so it would be nice to revisit this. So if you just give me a week or so, and then I'll get that recording out as soon as I can. I also want to mention that Sandra gave a lecture about a week ago now, and that lecture is also available on our University Museum's YouTube account, and that is about the history of Victorian hair work and some of the traditions in her local Winnipeg area. Sandra, all yours.
Great. Well, excuse me. Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to have us all here from all over the world. That's very cool. I'm going to share my screen. So actually, before I do that, today we are going to be making a little hairwork flower, something like this. And I have photos on my presentation, so no worries if you can't see that. Roughly a 5-petal flower or anything you want to make that is related to that you come up with. Not, of course, it's art. Do whatever you like. But that's the general plan. I'm going to just go through the first few steps first in case anyone hasn't done those. They can work on those while I do a little quick presentation on hair work super fast. And then we'll be ready to dive into the crafting. So the two things that we need to prep for the workshop are the strands of hair. So that was described in the email sent out as about 20 to 40 individual hairs glued at the top with nail polish, clear nail polish. And you want, 6 to 12 of those because you might need a few tries. So each one of those is going to be a petal. And then the other thing you need is a piece of wire that is approximately the length of the hair you're using. And again, I'll have pictures of this that you can see better, but you're going to take your wire, fold it in half, and just give it about 3 twists so that it's doubled over. And you probably can't see that at all, but anyway, and it has a little loop at the top. So if anyone needs to do that now, you can go about that. The nail polish takes a bit to dry, so do that first. And then I'll just give you a little overview about hair work, history, and then we can dive in. Does anyone have any questions about those 2 steps? Okay, you're gonna see the wire. Okay, can you see this? Can anyone see this? If not, I'll figure out a new way. So that's the end of it. You just fold it in half, twist it about 3 times. You're going to have a tiny loop in the center. That makes sense?
Will we need any tape?
No. Shouldn't need any tape. That makes sense. And the wire will be the length of your hair. And the hair can be, 10 inches or as small as 5, I would say, but the longer the better for your first time, just to keep things easy. Okay, so I will share my screen and we'll just look at a few images of hair work, get in the mood. Can you guys see my screen that says Victorian hair work?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Okay, so just a quick overview, and it might be a little bit of repetition from my talk for those of you who might have been there, but who doesn't want to look at beautiful pieces of hair work? So as you guys probably know, hair work is a very old crafting tradition and an artistic tradition coming out of mourning jewelry. And the very earliest pieces we would see with any hair was about in the 1500s, growing into much more higher in popularity in the 1700s. And so these are some early examples of hair work, thanks to Sarah Nahama and Hayden Peters. So we see the memento mori imagery in some of these rings, the skull. So memento mori meaning remember that you must die. And that was certainly a very prominent theme in this time. And so you'll see smaller pieces like brooches and rings, often hidden and not as showy. Often, as we get a bit later, there'll be a brooch or a locket with a picture on the other side as a personal keepsake of someone who had died. Here is some other examples of early hair work. Again, most of the early hair work was flat work or generally quite small pieces. So on the left, we see sepia painting, which is painting with pigment made from crushed hair in very elaborate images. Then there's pretty much any types of curls, including the Prince of Wales curl, which was very popular. And on the right there, you see some flat or palette work that is cut pieces and glued, and then a ring with some basket weave. And then we move into the 1800s, where hair work takes on, in addition to mourning, a purpose to also, give gift giving between loved ones that are alive and cementing those friendships and bonds that are important in society. You would give gifts to your husband, your siblings, your friends. And we see a lot more people prominently wearing hair work as a fashion statement. It's important to show with what you wear the values that you have of sentimentality and authenticity and connection to your loved ones, in addition to it still being used as a mourning tool. So here we have some examples of table work, which is done on a small braiding table, very similar to many other types of braiding that we see in different cultures. And these could be made into bracelets, necklaces, earrings, watch fobs for men, like the watch chains were very popular for men. And here we have some wreath work or wire work. And these were, of course, used to make wreaths. This type of hair work was made exclusively in the home, while the others were, at least at the beginning, made professionally by professional hair workers outside the home and commissioned. And we have some different examples here of some beautiful flowers. One is from Leila's Hair Museum that I was lucky to visit last year. The middle one from Seven Oaks House that I am proud to be on the board of, and beautiful one from Toulon and District Museum, Rural Museum near me. And sorry, okay. I'm not sure if there's any questions at this point. I've lost track of the chat, so maybe 1 second. Okay, I'll come back to the chat in a moment. Okay, I'm just gonna unshare my screen, perhaps. There we go. I found it, everyone. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to show my work a little bit just to give me a sense of what I do. So there's quite a few modern hair workers these days doing very interesting things, a lot of it based on traditional, very, very close to the traditional crafting techniques that we see historically. And this is wire work that you see here that I do. I work with clients to make custom keepsakes in remembrance or just celebration of first haircuts or hair they had of themselves from their first haircut. It's sort of a little bit of everything. So these are some examples of things I have created. And I also do the flat work. So these are some examples of flat work in human hair. I like doing flowers, but you can do absolutely anything. And this is an example of pet flat work. So I do keepsakes for pets. And the center one is made of cat hair. The other two are made of dog hair. Can really use any hair. This is not historical. There may be some examples if anyone knows of pet historic hair work. I haven't come across any myself yet, but it's adapting the human hair technique to work with pet hair. And can do custom paws and some very cute stuff. Any questions on what I presented or anything with how you're doing with your hair and wire? And you're welcome to take off your mute and actually talk. I think we should be fine doing that, but I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as well.
I have one question with what you've shown that you do. Are they pins or are they jewelry or are they just to like have on the wall or
Yeah, great
how do you
question.
have?
Well, certainly the flat ones are in frames, and as far as the human hair, the wire work, these are examples of just sort of pieces that I have created as is, but they can be pins, but the hair can snag. So I don't love to do pins. I do make hair barrettes. You can sort of embellish your own hair with a piece of hair. So the ones you see here could be examples of that, or they could be framed in a shadow box or just kept in a keepsake box. Very flexible. Okay, so I will go through. Oh, here's a quote that I enjoy as well, just to get into sort of the importance of hair work and what we're doing today and what the importance of keeping this tradition alive and what it can do. So this is a quote from Helen Schumacher's book, Love Entwined, which I highly recommend. Today, when we encounter hair work, we confront a relic of the living, breathing reality of someone long deceased. Because these scraps of hair were saved to remember someone, we behold the person's self through a fragment of the body. When you hold a brooch made of hair, you hold in your hand a memento of an individual, her life and her emotions. And this is what brought me to hair work, is seeing these pieces in museums and really feeling that connection to people of the past and feeling extremely passionate about wanting to both continue to experience that by exploring museums and connect more by doing it for myself and for others and keeping the tradition going. So today we are going to be making a flower, as I said, or something similar, and we are going to be making gimps. So gimps are what we call each individual petal or strand of loops. I believe that comes from the world of lace making, gimps, but I'm not familiar with lace making specifically. But that's what it's called, a gimp. And so 5 gimps here make a 5-petal flower. And this is pretty much the main technique for wire work. You can absolutely do different things, but it's variations on this that make most styles that you see, most styles of flower. That being said, do whatever your imagination comes up with. So that's the nice thing about it as well. So what you're going to need is your hair that has been glued, and a note on that for the future. It's not important this time, but if you're continuing in the craft, we always want to work with the grain of the hair. So the hair from the head is going to feel smooth if you run your finger down it, or more smooth. Every texture of hair is different. If you were to run your finger up your hair, you're going to feel it a little more coarse, a little harder. It's not going to feel smooth. You want to work with the grain. So we always want to be gluing the hair at the place where it left the head and weaving down from there. But as of today, it's not going to make a huge difference. So don't worry about that. And if you're using artificial hair, it's not going to make is not relevant. So we're going to start with our piece of wire and our rod. So you can use a shish kebab skewer, or if you want to make a wider loop, you can use really any size of knitting needle or anything similar that you have around your house. I've used shish kebab skewers for a long time. You might want to invest in a nice like metal knitting needle. That probably makes more sense to avoid any shards of wood, but I've been doing it for years and I like it. So I have some videos, and I'm going to maybe go through them. We'll watch them and then we'll come back and I'll just put them on repeat and answer questions. And Charlotte is asking how close to the 19th century technique is what we're doing today. I would say while there are much less manuals regarding wire work, to me, I believe this is very close. I think they may not have had a clamp, but you can also just do this in your hand. So I think that wire and hair on a rod is what they were doing. So I would say it's quite close. They probably would have been gluing their hair with a slightly different substance than clear nail polish, but other than that, very close. Sorry, the question I answered there, if I didn't say, is how close to the 19th century technique is what we're doing today.
Oh, what? I'm watching it right now on my phone.
Okay, so we're gonna take a look at this first video. Please let me know if you cannot see a video playing. So the first thing we're gonna do, and you should, ideally you're at a table that is a thin table, so you can use your clamp. But if you're not, you can also do this without a clamp. So I'll explain that as well. So basically what you're going to do is take your rod and your wire. The wire is going to sit on top of the rod and you're going to clamp both to the table. Sometimes if you're not getting a good sort of seal, you can add a tissue or piece of paper or paper towel under the rod to sort of even it out. This can be a little bit frustrating. If it's not working for you, you can also try just doing this while holding it. I like to offer both options because I find that it's easier with the clamp to start because you don't have to worry about, like, you have both hands as opposed to kind of one hand. However, clamping into the table can sometimes be a bit frustrating, so don't get discouraged. So I'll keep playing that, and well, actually, no, I'm going to go to the next one. We'll play it one more time and we'll go to the next one and then we'll come back. And you're going to want to do it about halfway down. You're going to want to give yourself room to loop and make your gimp towards you on the rod. So give yourself enough room. Okay. So the next one, once you have your rod stabilized, we're going to be attaching the hair. So you'll start with the pieces of wire bent down on either side, as you saw, and then you're going to be looping your hair over in a U shape with the opening at the top, and then you're going to crisscross your wires in front of the hair coming toward you. You're always working toward you on the rod with some type of material. So you're going to loop the hair and then you're going to crisscross your wires over. So you're going to want to see an X on the top of your wire, on the top of your rod made with the wire. And one important thing is, as you do this, choose the direction that you do all of these things and keep it consistent. I think this is one way that people slip up early on, is maybe going one way with the hair, but then going again the other way. So the idea is, if you're going clockwise with your hair, keep going clockwise. If you do the left wire over and then the right wire over, continue to do left and then right. Just keep it the same and consistent, then there's less chance of getting caught up. Okay, I'm going to go to the next video. Again, we will come back. So we've attached our wire, and now we're going to do the looping. So your wire should be secure. You want to pull your hair should be secure, and you want to pull the wire down each time just to keep the hair secure. So you're going to loop the hair, and then you're going to crisscross your wire. So it's basically 3 movements over and over, and pulling it down to secure it. Loop the hair, always coming toward you, holding it up, crisscrossing your wire. And you're just going to continue doing that until you are almost all the way through your hair, leaving about an inch.
So the only thing wrapping around the rod is the hair because the wire stays on top, correct?
That is correct. And that is a very important point, because if
Okay.
you see your wire going around, then you want to back up. That is quite exactly. Only thing wrapping is the hair. Okay. And then we'll just go to the end. The last video is how to sort of tie it off. Once you're done, you're going to leave about an inch. You can leave more if you want. Don't leave less than that. You're going to crisscross like usual, And then you're going to do a few extra twists while holding the hair. And you can, once you slide it off, you can twist it even more to get it even closer and even tighter. You grab the whole thing with your thumb or your finger to pull it off so you're not tugging one part more than the other. And there you've got your gimp. And then what we'll be doing is putting, you can tighten each end, put a dab of nail polish on each end to hold it in, let it dry, and then we'll be bending it into flowers, into petals. Any questions off the top, having seen that process?
So the other thing that seems really interesting too is to see how big of the rod you use to say how big of the petal, I guess the shape ultimately with how much would be a loop when you fan it out or do whatever is going to be next. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so you can do many different variations. The limiting factor is usually the length of the hair because it takes quite a lot to, with the even with the small loops, you know, that just a small petal is going to take like 10 inches of hair. So when you have very, very long hair, you can really, you can really do some interesting things. You can do bigger loops, but of course it's going to make an even smaller petal because the loops are taking up so much more hair. But yes. Okay. So we will go back and yes, we will be showing all of the videos again, and you guys can try it out and ask questions. And I'm here to troubleshoot, etc. Okay, so here's the first one. So it's kind of the casting on part. Think of putting your hair in a U shape, surrounding the rod with the open part of the U toward the top. And if you want to do this handheld, you simply do not use a clamp and you hold the top of the wire with your thumb, cast on with your hair. You might need to grab that bit of hair with that same thumb, tighten the wire, and then you can just go from there. And it kind of depends what you prefer. I used a clamp for most of my career doing this, but just this current commission I'm working on, I've been going all handheld all of a sudden, so you never know. And speaking with other hair workers, I think Diane is on. She always wets the hair before she does any of this. So, that probably helps. I've never done that, but if it's going to make it smoother and easier, I think that's another thing you can try out. So you attach the hair by looping it around the rod and then doing a crisscross of the wire in front of it toward you. Did that just stop? Oh yeah, sorry. We need to go to the next video. That's why. Okay, here we go. Hair attaching. Take the hair, loop it and grab it. Kind of close the circle with both of your hands or with your fingers, and then fasten it with the crisscross of the wire. Kat, are you wanting which video? We can go through all the videos, so. Kat was Clary was asking about the nail polish degrading. I have not, but that is a fair question. And it's probably the only thing I use in my process that is not archival. So it might be wise to find something different. If any hair workers on use something different, feel free to share. The good thing about it is that you're not like glazing this whole piece with nail polish. So even if it degraded, it's already been very tightly bound with wire. So I don't think that it would be a huge issue, but in the interest of making everything archival, it might be wise to explore other options as well. There are definitely historic products that could be used. I don't know if there are archival. Okay. Answering one question about how many strands, I say about 40, but it depends on the thickness of the hair. If you're using, that might be too much. If you're using fake hair, just like from a wig, you might want less because it might be quite thick. Yeah, so, horsehair. I would actually use 12. That is what I found is best for horsehair. When I recommended 40, that's human hair, definitely. Horsehair is a lot thicker, a lot sturdier. It's nice. It's nice to work with. It's a good choice. Kat, I don't quite know what you mean, but I'll go to the next video and see if that is what people want to let's see here. Go to the next video. Okay, let me ask, are people latched on and starting their looping?
I'm not. I came
Okay.
across a problem. Mine's like I used my own hair,
Uh-huh.
but it's too long. It's really hard. It's like this long. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
18 inches or something. It's just a lot to try to tuck and hold and do whatever and have it be out. I'm thinking that something
Totally.
shorter probably would have been maybe something just to start with, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
is that how much hair do you have? Like, would you be willing to cut that hair? Because it's
Oh,
nice, like,
yeah, I
yeah,
have tons.
then I would just trim that
Trim it
down
and try it
to,
again. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
do
just trim
that.
it to like 8 or 10 inches.
I'll try
Okay,
that.
so we're working on getting the clamp and hair on. No worries, guys. You know what? Yeah, if folks are having trouble with the clamp and tape is working better to hold it on, go for it. There's always whatever works is the right answer. So some people are saying they use masking tape to hold the skewer to the table. The clamp, depending on the type of clamp you have, it can be finicky. I will go back. Close up of how the hair is through the wire. Can you rephrase, Charlotte? I don't have a close up, but what are we looking to figure out? And I can try to describe it. And this is the hardest part. This is normal to to take a while to get going. So don't feel discouraged. Charlotte, you can also go off mute and ask your question if you prefer.
Hello. Yeah, no, just trying to figure out that the hair should be in through the loop, right? Through the loop of the wire, or
Not the top loop. Like, so we have a wire. Oh, sorry,
yeah.
you guys are
Well, no,
like,
I was just going to say I've got the loop.
so depends what loop we're talking about.
The loop of the wire.
Not the one at the top of the wire. When we fold the wire and there's a little loop left,
Yes.
it does not need to go through that.
Right.
Is that what you're asking, or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, no, that is basically it. Yeah.
So just going down, you'll be crisscrossing the wire to fasten the loops of hair, if that makes sense. How are other people doing on sort of just getting started? Okay, so someone is at the end of the strand of hair. Lindsay, good job. Okay, so let's go to the looping part. And we'll come back around for everyone else. So if you have your hair on, you're going to start wrapping the rod with the hair. And as Kelly said very wisely, the only thing that should actually wrap around the rod is the hair. So if you see your black wire or whatever wire going all the way around your rod, you want to back up and go back, because that's not quite correct. Not that having a little error here and there is a big problem for the first time, but it's fairly easy to back up while you're still on the rod. So you're looping the hair in one direction, and then you're taking one of the wires and crossing it over the top, the other wire crossing it over the top. You should see an X with the wire along the top of your rod. For anyone who is actually going forward, remember, once you reach the end of your hair, you can do a few extra twists to tighten it and then slide it off, and you can start again and do your next one. Everyone looks busy, so that's good. Let me know if you need any specifics. We'll go to the last video again for anyone who's finishing up their GIMP.
I have a question, and maybe you answered this already, but I feel like I'm okay with the wrapping, but I'm questioning what I did at the beginning and how I'm gonna make sure that my hair doesn't unravel from the top where I started it. What is it supposed to look like?
So I think it'll stop. This video might stop, hopefully, or I'll pause it. There, okay, so you see the video, it should be
Just need to twist it.
between the wire, and then yeah, you can, if it's sort of loose, you just twist it a bunch till it looks tight, and then you can also do the nail polish as an extra insurance on that. Do that on both ends, do the nail polish, and then it'll have a chance to dry.
On the part that you paused where you're holding it, how many, does it matter how long that part is to get the wire started before you put the hair on it? Can that be like an inch, or does that matter? Because that's going to be tucked and kind of put and not seen, right?
Yes, generally, yes. So the nice thing about these flowers is you have like a not seen side, so you can have something weird, just hide it in the back. So generally it doesn't matter. The only consideration, probably not for today, but for future, is sometimes things can get quite bulky. I'll show you an example that I'm working on right now. I guess I should. So sometimes if you have a lot of excess wire, it can get pretty bulky in the back. So this is a horsehair flower, and it's a lot of petals, and so it's going to be a lot of wire in the back, and that's not a bad thing, but it depends how you want to mount it. It's going to be a bit further out from your backing. You can do it differently and have less wire, but that's the only consideration.
Okay.
And you want to start with more rather than less, because you can always just cut it later. As long as you're not cutting the part that's holding the hair, then you can always trim it later. I often trim, say, there's going to be the ends hanging out at the bottom. I usually trim at least one of those off and use the other one for attaching. That gets rid of half the wire. Sometimes I take, here, I'll share my screen again, but sometimes once you've finished your GIMP, oh, there's going to be that spray at the end. Sometimes I wrap that hair into the wire. Sometimes I just trim it closely. And it depends on my piece and what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone have specific videos they would like to see?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Hair and Now. If you are new around here,
Okay, number 3. Sorry, I didn't realize that stopped.
Now, can you all imagine trying to learn this through Goody's Ladies book and 3 illustrations and a bunch of directions?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I tried before, looking at a Godey's book. And, it's just all words. It's like no
Yeah,
pictures. I'm like, okay.
That was pretty
exactly.
true with almost all the women's domestic artistries that they were teaching, whether it was crochet or hair work or
Oh,
how to make a dress.
Yeah.
they must have had, I don't know if they just had different brains that could, I mean, obviously some people are different types of learners, but yeah, it's mind-boggling to me. Obviously, if you had someone in your house who knew the craft, that would probably be helpful. But yeah, people did it.
And would these skill sets have been passed down through the family? I would assume so.
Would imagine. I mean, there was certainly a point at which it got popular. So there was the wave of the first people learning it. But I think it could have often been a really nice, for those who had the means to spend time doing these kinds of things, a nice women family project to make a huge, huge hair wreath. It certainly would have helped because there's a lot of work to do with these massive wreaths. This kind of, if you now know how hard it is to do one of these. Obviously, you get faster. Your first one is going to be the hardest, but it still takes quite a lot of time, even if you're zooming through. Clary was asking, do I wash my hair pieces beforehand? And I don't usually wash it unless it seems that it is necessary, which you will kind of know by if there's product or excess oil. Usually people send hair after they've had it washed and cut. So I don't usually find the need, but once in a while, there'll seem to be an excess product. Certainly like with horsehair, that needs to be washed pretty thoroughly if it's a tail. So you can usually tell, but it's not essential. Okay, Jill is asking, can you go over what to do when you reach the end of the hair? Yes, so going to the next video, when you reach the end, leave at least an inch, and then you do your crisscross as normal, but then you grab that wire and you twist it, about 3 times or as tight as you feel comfortable. You can always tighten it more once it's off the rod, though. It is easier. And then grab it all firmly and pull it to avoid pulling one end and unraveling it, which is not likely, but could happen. The other thing that can be a challenge is sometimes, and even for me, and it happens at random, so I'm not sure, is I guess my tension is very tight and it's sometimes difficult to get it off the rod. That's probably why like a metal knitting needle will be easier. So that is something that can just happen sometimes. And there's been one or two that I had to throw away because I could not get it off my rod, which was kind of strange.
So one thing I noticed too, when you said when you wrap the hair and then you twist the wire and then you wrap the hair and twist the wire, you're not twisting the wire twice, right? You're just twisting it once or would it make a difference if you twist it more than once?
Are you talking about as we go in through it with this? Yeah, not at the end, right?
In between
Yeah,
each
wrap. One. I would describe it as crisscrossing the wire more so than twisting it, if that's helpful. You can make variations. If you wanted like an interesting look where you just had one loop and then a space, you could crisscross it a bunch of times or twist it. You know, that's not against the law, but to make this look, it's just one crisscross making an X over your rod. And thank you, Claire, for sharing that source in the chat. Ladies Fancy Work by Mrs. C.S. Jones and Henry T. Williams. And you learned wire work from it. Well, then that's a great praise of that book. I'd be interested to take a look, see if I could have done it. Okay. So Saskia is asking about starting in the hand without the clamp. I'm guessing you tried the clamp and that was not working. So you're moving to hand. No worries, no worries. So as I said, or as some other people suggested, if you want to try some tape, that might be an option too, if you're feeling frustrated with these two. So for doing it in your hand, I'm going to do it as well so I can describe it. You're going to hold the rod.
You might want to switch your video.
Yeah, take it off. Hey, good call. Thank you. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm still going to do it in real time here. You're going to hold the rod. You're going to take your wire. You can see that. Mine is silver. Hold the loop of the wire with your thumb, like the V of the wire. And you're going to make sure both of the sides of the wire are down at the sides of the rod. Then you're going to take your hair. And this is where it's a little finicky because you're holding a lot with this one thumb here. And you're going to put the hair, lay the hair on top of the wire. So the bit that is covered in nail polish where you glued it is going to be right on top of that loop. And then you're going to put your thumb on it again. You want to make sure you can see the place where the wire makes a V or a upside down V, an A or whatever. That's something that's important for doing it on the clamp as well. You want to be able to see where that little connection point. And then you're going to take your hair and loop it around one time. And then you take this hair here, also put it under that same thumb. So the thumb's holding it all together. And then you're going to cross your wires over one at a time to make an X. And you pull it as tight as you can. That first one's not going to be super tight just because of how you're holding it. But then you do that again. And you take your hair, you circle it. Go back to the top, grab it with your thumb, and make a crisscross. At a certain point, after say about 3, you can let go or not have to worry so much about it because it's actually going to be securely on the rod. I'll have to do a video for this version too next time. Steve is asking, did many people take this on as a cottage industry? Yeah, it's interesting. When I was doing my research for the talk about hair work as a professional service and then its trajectory to home craft, not that it ever stopped being professional service. You know, there was lots of ads and there was a big industry of selling these guidebooks, like the Lady Goatee Ladies book, etc. And sometimes they would say, you know, this is a way you can make money at home by starting to do this. So it was that I only saw one reference where they suggested it as an economic opportunity for their readers, but certainly. And it's interesting that professionally hair workers were quite equally male and female. I can't say stats on that, but when you look at prominent hair workers that we can trace their careers through ads and contracts they had, there's quite a few men and quite a few women. So I found that pretty interesting. Okay, Rosie's asking how much wire should be left at the end of each one. I would say, you know, for this, it doesn't need to be much at all. Maybe an inch. If it's less, it'll probably be fine. There's a lot of flexibility with putting your creations together. Because it is wire, you can always grab another piece of wire and attach it on and wrap it all together. So there's flexibility on that. But usually it's nice to have a piece of wire that's maybe an inch or to 2 inches at the end. But it's not, if not, it's okay. How you doing, Saskia? Like a little forlorn. It's okay. It's hard. It's hard the first time. Is it holding it all together that's the challenge, or sort of just getting it all going? No worries. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Feel free to take a break. Again, the videos will be out. You can you know, get relaxed, come back another time if it's not working out in the moment. It does take time at the beginning, and you will get it if you keep practicing. Okay. Okay. I'm reading your thing, Saskia, crossed over wire. So the hair is, are you looping the hair around the rod? You're on mute.
Right,
Oh,
okay. So I thought I was, and now I'm just ending up with just wire and the hair is doing nothing. So I'm just
Like
going to take everything off and come back to you in a minute when I'm all set
yeah.
up.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we're totally here to troubleshoot. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's
yeah. I'll see you in a minute when I'm set up and ready.
totally. Kat said, what I was missing the first time was holding the hair back up when I crisscrossed the wire. It's all those things, and it's hard. This is the thing about these written manuals is sometimes you can read something like that and be like, what are you talking about? But someone else will be like, oh my gosh, thank you. You know, so it's just the way we word it. Sometimes our brains all kind of interpret it differently, which is a challenge of doing this online too. Because if we were in person, I could come over your shoulder and look at it very closely. But the benefit of doing it online is this is an international group, which is so cool. So Kat is saying, make sure the hair comes back up to, you do the loop and you bring it back up to the top. I think that's what they're saying. Make sure you make a full circle with the hair so that the wire actually gets it in its grip. Let me know if you want the videos again.
Can you show the video again for the ending or the casting off?
Yes. There we go. So the video starts where I've already done one crisscross, and then what is showing is extra twists. But a crisscross is just the first part of the twist.
Aren't you all thrilled we made this a 2-hour workshop? 1 hour down.
So I'm done. I'm ready to cast off or slide it off, but I'm afraid that I'm going to lose everything.
So fair enough. Before you do that, do a couple
it looks
extra
good, right?
twists. That looks perfect. And if just you can always do a couple extra twists at each end and just grab it all together. That is the best way to make sure you're not going to lose anything. And just
Oh, look at that.
there you go. Have faith.
Oh, that's
Yay. So Steve is asking, is it important that all the wire X's are on the same side of the dowel, or can I straighten it out later? So I think you mean sometimes they look a little wonky and it looks like you're kind of going down the side. That's generally fine. That happens and it should be able to straighten out later.
Okay.
So I think this is just another question that would be more of like an aesthetic look when you're finishing up is what about where the little hairs maybe have ended before the rest of them,
Yes.
right?
And that's the other thing that I should have mentioned, but again, no problem for beginning. It's stuff to think about for later. You can trim those off, no problem. But the other thing to do when you're creating your little strand, your little bundle of hairs, is I usually try to make sure they're about all the same length just to avoid that, especially because, these days with like layered haircuts, you can have a very thick top and then you're going to end up having just a very thin bottom, which can actually make your petal look uneven. So, especially with long hair like you're using, Kelly, it shouldn't be an issue. Just take a little more than you think you'll need, and then you can sort of spread it between your fingers and you'll see where those smaller ones kind of fall away. You can kind of pull them out. You can use a little comb to comb through it and just try to make your bundle of hairs as uniform as possible, and then you won't have to worry about that as much. But I've never had a problem trimming a few errant hairs. That does happen even when you're working with your sculpture later. Sometimes some hairs come out. Trimming it. If I'm really worried, I might put a dollop of glue or, nail polish, and that can just seal it a little more. I wouldn't do that where you can see it, but on the back. But I don't usually have to do that. It's not an issue.
So I'm ready to start all over again. So I'm sorry for everyone's already really ahead. Do I tape? So I've got tape. Am I taping the wire and the knitting needle to the table, or just the knitting needle to the table?
Just the needle.
Right. So
wait, let me think. No, hold on. You can tape the wire. Just make sure you see the place where it connects in the little V.
Okay.
Because you need to make sure that you're getting all the hair tight in there. But yes, you can tape the top part where the loop is, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Clary's asking, how do you address having only short hairs like 5 inches? So I usually say for commissions, I can work with hair minimum 5 inches because it's just going to give you quite a small petal. And I don't want clients to be like imagining this gigantic flower, and you just can't do that. You can, add 2 gimps together, but you're going to see the place where it connects. So, other hair workers might have tips on that. I do it sometimes, but I like to do it where perhaps where there's a bend in the piece so that you're not just seeing like a bit of a visual where the connection happens, because there is wire involved. You have to twist it. It's not going to be a flawless look. So I don't love doing that, but I do sometimes. Okay, let's put the first video on. And another thing you can do with shorter hair in a general sense is you can just braid it and do things like that. You don't have to do this gimping technique. Braids will be longer, obviously, because you're not looping the hair so much. You can do little sprays of hair. You can do big, thick, broad petals that you just need about 5 inches for, and that would be one petal per section of hair, but there are definitely options you can use for shorter hair. So where the clamp is where your tape would be. And you can see that you can see the spot there where the two ends of the wire connect in a V or triangle shape. I'm thinking about if there's a way to connect hair before you weave it to make a longer. I've never thought about that. But that's the thing, you can always invent new ways to troubleshoot.
5 little bitty knots on each strand of hair.
I'm sure someone has the patience for that. I don't know if you could glue it. I think there'd be a problem with it sort of bunching in a certain way, but I haven't tried.
Yeah, so the idea of making a wreath out of it for simpler, that was my first go at this.
Oh, I wish I could see that a little better. Is that hair?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
amazing.
one piece of wire, and I just braided around it and just looped it up twice and put some dried flowers in with it.
Oh, I see. Beautiful. So it's a regular braid?
Yeah, just simple 3,
Yeah,
hair
there you
braid.
go. It looks nice.
So
Okay.
I've got to the point where I can see my loop and I've got my hair. Please, will you just say out loud what I'm to do and which direction to go to attach the hair, please?
Okay. Yes.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to put the video on just to help me say
Can I just say,
it.
yeah, I'm in, like, my face is doing the same as yours. Like, I am having exactly the same issue.
I want to say one thing that I felt like the same thing as you guys, but once you start to get it, you're like, I got the rhythm or the pattern down. Right?
Okay, that's
It's sort of a
hopeful.
eureka moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're putting the hair on. We've got our stuff ready here. You're going to take the hair, come up from the bottom with your hair in both hands and shape it over the rod like a U, but then
So I've got the hair and I'm like under the 2 wires, or so is the hair to go above the 2 wires that are down or under the 2 wires, as in the hair is underneath, but is it coming higher than the wires or lower than them?
Okay. I know it's hard. It's, as I said, it's hard to, okay. So one thing that's helpful too is to remember, I don't know if this quite addresses your question, but as you are doing this, whatever you're using should be the closest to you. So if you're crisscrossing the wires, there shouldn't be hair between you and the wires. If you're looping the hair, there shouldn't be wire between you and the hair. But you're asking about where the hair is placed as you put it on. So your wires are pointing down. Your
And
hair
I'm
is
under. Okay,
your hair is under the rod in front of the wire, as in closer to yourself than the wire. It's hard. It's even hard for me.
I think I've done it. I think I've done it. Right. So I've crossed it over. Okay. Now
cross the wires over in front of, over and in front, and then you loop the hair around again.
Underneath both of
I would say so,
or through the middle of them.
So your wires are hanging down.
Yeah.
And you're going to be looping around the rod in front of the wires. This is where, as you do the loop, pretend the wires aren't there. They should be kind of out of the way, further away from you than the hair. It'll be the wires, and then the hair should be in between you and the wires. And then you bring them up to interact.
Whilst the hair is underneath, or I've got it all the way around back up to the top.
Let me go to the next one. Okay, so now that you've got on, I'm just looking at this video and I'll describe it. So can you say your question again?
I'm gonna mute myself for a second whilst I just try it.
Totally,
So
totally.
who is asking the question? Is your name Saskia? I can't read it from here.
Yes.
Okay. So just as the label says Celia and Lila Forbes, but it's Molly and Amy and Lila, and we are all here. And that was great because there's 3 of us, so we're able to each of us understand a bit of it.
Yeah, we're all working off of it.
Yeah, and then teach each other. So let me take the camera. Molly, you want to show what you're doing? It doesn't really show up at the. Can you get it?
You guys went on mute if I don't know if you meant to.
Sorry about that.
Moving the speaker.
It would be also easier to see if the share screen was small. Than
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'll take it off. Sorry about that.
Okay. So, here we go. All right. So
it's
yeah. Okay. So, but you
example.
can talk about how it's connected up at the top, and maybe then Saskia will be able to see it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So basically, the idea is you want to be able to pinch some hair and like the top of your hair where it's glued together.
I'm just about to start a new one. So I've got my hair and my wire, and I'm pinching
together, and then you're using the skewer or the knitting needle as a brace, so that when you start like making little loops with your hair around the wire, the loops are all consistent type. So
how I've been starting it is that the question? How
to start?
I've just been doing it like this. I don't know if this is exactly how I'm supposed to be doing it, but it's been working. I just I grab the hair at the very end, and then I take the wire and just wrap it a couple times around.
That's good.
Then the really important step, because I think it's the kicker that really keeps it in place for most of it, is you get the two parts of the strand of wire once you've wrapped it around a couple times. And then you're going to want to wrap one of those around like by itself, and then double the other one back on it and put it in the other direction.
I'm doing it a little bit differently, but the idea is the same, that you are holding the hair against the loop of wire at the top. And then you're kind of letting the long end of the hair dangle in between the 2 long ends of the wire. And then you're twisting the wire so that it crisscrosses over the hair and kind of holds it in place.
It helps if you're imagine you're giving the hair a hug with the wire, because you're kind of like you're taking the 2 ends and they're kind of like this, and then you're like, oh, let's all come in and have a nice embrace, and you wrap them like that, and that kind of helps them stay in place, and it keeps it nice and tight.
I like that suggestion to secure the hair to the wire. That's a really good suggestion.
I almost think it helps if one of your wires is a little bit more down along the needle.
Yeah.
And then when you wrap your hair around, then you pull that one up and kind of cross it over and then put it back down.
Yeah.
You come over that. Gosh, sorry.
I need like a song that just tells me exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Well,
here, what you're trying
I remember the hug.
Yeah, what you're trying to do essentially is get the wire to pinch the hair, grab onto the hair, the 2 ends of the wire, to pinch it and grab it and twist it in place so it kind of locks it together.
Here, I can.
Yeah, you want to try it again?
Molly's really got this like on lock. She's really figured out the process, but so how I've been doing it.
Where it is in the camera.
Okay, I can't really.
I know that's what it's hard to.
Well, I gotta also look at the hair. So I'm gonna take it like this and see. I've got the wire and I want it sticking out away from the skewer. I don't want the wire to cross over the skewer because that makes it really difficult to get off, and it kind of messes with the consistency, or not the consistency, but the tension. Whatever. Yeah, tension. So I'm gonna take the hair first, and I'm gonna just wrap it around like this. And then I'm gonna get it up. So now it's between the wires. So I have the wires right here, and when I wrap it up, I'm gonna pull it up between those 2 wires so that when I can I can grab these two and twist it over, and now that hair is held in place while I start the next loop. So once I get those two twisted, then it's the same thing. I let go a little bit there, but I go under again, and then I bring it up through those two wires so I can my hands are completely in the way, I'm sorry, but I can grab it right there. And then as long as like one of the hairs is probably going to be staying, or the wire is going to be staying like parallel to the skewer, and the other one is sticking up a little bit. That's how I've been doing it.
Yeah, I think
that way
yeah.
You can really get up through them very easily.
Okay, here, and I'll see if I can show mine also. All right.
We've taken over.
Yeah, I know. We're doing it, and I would hope everybody else is doing this the same too. I cannot quite see where. Can you big my own?
Yeah,
so that I can see it better.
And Amy and family, I made you guys co-hosts so that hopefully
okay, perfect.
Oh man.
What's going
Okay,
on?
so a little bit hard to see what I've got going on here, but up at the top where my thumb is, I've got that loop of wire, and I've got it kind of grasping and strangling the top of the hair. And that's what's holding this whole deal into place. And then Molly's much better at this than I am, because my X's, my crisscrosses are kind of all over the place. But every time Molly, would you hold this? And then maybe we can show what the hands are doing. Yeah, okay. So every time I am making another loop, I'm going around with the hair, and I've got this wire long dangling down in this direction, this one coming off to the side, and then give it a twist, holds it in place. And then this hair comes around and it goes over the dangly wire, and then I'm twisting that off in place. So basically you're just making a loop around that skewer and locking each one of those loops into place by twisting the wire.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Sounds super easy.
Thanks,
doesn't
guys.
it? Not so much.
It's really just about getting into a rhythm, because it sounds super difficult and it's weird to like look at it and try and figure out what's going on. But if you get it once, you can replicate that a couple times and get the hang of it.
Yeah, and I will say that my first two were garbage, complete garbage. And then I looked at the other ones, and I looked at what's happening here, and I see how Molly's she's got all these little loops all crisscrossed in the wires, and
yeah, but my other ones are pretty
There's
garbage.
a definite progression.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
very
I do one,
normal.
make it a little better.
Thanks, guys.
I mean, we
Sorry.
wouldn't want you to put Sandra out of business.
No, I
know,
just really
I know, right?
I'm so grateful that I'm doing this with other people, that I
it's
feel
easier to
really,
see.
yeah, I feel for people who are like doing it on their own, and like you're trying to do it and you're like, is this right? And you don't have anybody that you can look at and be like, oh no, that's how you do it. Okay, I got that.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's challenging.
It is. Colby is asking about having a lot of broken off pieces. So yeah, that's kind of as I was mentioning before. You can try to get a more uniform piece before you start. Obviously, for a first time, I didn't want to focus on that. But yes, you can totally trim them off after you're done. Should be fine. Could try burning them. It smell bad, but you could try. I don't know. Right. So Claire's saying clamp and table is easy and hand is harder. And I know that I would have really struggled doing it first time with hand. I found why I always teach with clamp is because I always found that the easiest, but it just goes to show that everyone comes at it so differently. So it's kind of neat, because I like, if you have the clamp, you don't have to worry about like holding it all together while you figure out what to move.
So when I was getting the clamps, I guess that maybe I misread something, but I thought I saw mini clamps. And so I have mini clamps and they're too small for my tabletop.
And you know what? I apologize, because that is one thing that I didn't mention, that you kind of need a thin table. So I do apologize. Does anyone want to see the videos again? Just let me know. Oh, Lacey said she used a mini clamp on a book. So there you go, a little hack if your table is too thick. But then you have to make sure the book is very secure, or else you'll be just in the same boat as holding it, I guess. Put a weight on your book, the whole system.
Yeah.
Someone used Cat used a TV folding table. There we go. So if you need a mantra, it's not specific, but it's loop, cross, cross, right? Because you're looping the hair, crossing the wire, crossing the wire.
With your
Looping.
hair that you're using, is it
Mhm.
twisted or what is it? It looks like it's sticking together more. Not necessarily
Here?
where the, yeah.
This is horsehair, so it's just a lot
It's just
firmer.
coarser. Okay, gotcha.
Coarser, and it's really nice to work with because you're not getting the fly. Like you'll know if it's easy to get uniform hair and it's very thick and firm.
Mhm.
But I even have a flyaway here and I'll just trim it.
Gotcha.
Pen.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This was the nail polish piece.
I just wanted to say that I know you said not to use sentimental hair, and I am not. But what I am using is about 5 years ago, I was in chemo treatment for cancer, and so I had a wig, and it's not something that I would, and it was, it lasted for as long as I needed it to, but not much beyond. So I cut it to pieces, and we are reclaiming that experience into hair art. So
That is very cool. Thanks for sharing that.
That's really beautiful. Thank you.
I love that.
And I cut my hair off recently, and this is how much I have because my hair is really thick. I have all this that I cut off.
Amazing. You can
So,
do
yeah.
so much. Make a whole wreath.
Yeah.
So if people are getting, and please do not feel bad if you are not there again, it's not easy the first time. If people are wanting to sort of create their flower or again, whatever kind of shape you want, you're welcome to do that. You would perhaps obviously shape your GIMP into a petal. You can do it either way. It gives two different looks if you have the loops on the outside or you have the loops on the inside. You can fasten it as a petal. And if you have a button or a bead, you can put it in the middle or anywhere. And that's a great way to hide all the spots where you're connecting all the petals. So the button will hide that. Or, if you wanted to do more, sometimes I do a braid and I make a spiral with a braid. That's a nice looking center to a flower as well. And try to, create whatever you want to create. So Kat is saying the ends are scraggly. So sometimes I take can you guys see me? Like, I guess it depends what your view is, but so I've got an end here, I'm trying to put it where you can see. Sometimes I kind of put it between these two excess wires and wrap it one more time. It does depend what you're trying to do and if that is going to work out. And then you can, glue that with nail polish and then just trim the edges so they're not the ends of the hair so they're not poking out. Or if you're making a flower, you can just wrap the hair into the wire as you create the petal.
know you mentioned and you talk about nail polish. Is there a glue that would be good to use? Or I mean, I know you can use anything you want, but I'm just saying, is there anything that would make you not, excuse me, not want to use glue?
And I think that I like nail polish because it dries quickly. So it's not the be all end all. If other folks have ideas, if you're gonna like it is good to get an acid free product with which I'm sure nail polish is not. Like for my flat work, I use this Scotch tacky glue. It dries relatively fast, but not incredibly fast, so it would slow down my production pretty significantly, I think. Might be worth trying though. Can't say I have, but yeah, I'm open to people's thoughts on that.
And you talked about your flat work. Is that something you would show too at some point, maybe with a class or something?
Yeah, possibly. I haven't done a flat work class. But yeah, that could certainly be possible.
Because it's really pretty too, seeing what you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, the flat work is really good for when you have short pieces. Can really use like short pieces of hair. And thank you, Clary. It's nice to have a few people that have done hair work before, and please jump in with suggestions. It's nice to crowdsource like we have been doing on explanations and techniques. It's always very fun to hear what other hair workers are doing, and you can improve your own process.
One thing I noticed on mine too is mine looks, when I took it off, it looks flat. It's still got, hold on, where am I at? It's still got hoops and loops,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make circles. It kind of looks like they went to the side some and it kind of
Oh, I see.
a fan look more than like
Yeah.
a look. Is that because my twists are maybe not as tight?
I think that is normal. I'm looking
Okay.
at mine, and it is the loops are like flat in the sense in the way that you described. They're not
Okay.
the other way.
Okay.
If you, yeah, so that is how they generally are.
Okay.
Of course, like the way you can create dimension is, of course, there's just endless opportunity with this. This is my favorite type of hair work because you can have anything poking out like a real, garden, and I just love it so much. So there's lots of ways to create dimension.
And now when you go to actually make the flower and you start twisting things together, do you find it that you use like miniature tools like pliers that are like needle nose that help you twist it and make things really unique with
Yeah, I have
on it?
Yeah. Having some very delicate, pointy, I guess tweezers almost, but craft type things is really helpful. Some little scissors that are very fine for all types of hair work. Those are very helpful tools. Little pliers, mini pliers, that all helps. Diane, who's a very talented hair artist, is recommending Kelly for more full circles, wet the hair and let them dry on the rod before removing it. So there you go. I will try that. And I see Charlotte has used a clothespin, which is also a good hack too.
That was what was available at Pure.
There you go. That's how these things are done. Yeah, because then there are ways to avoid having to hold it all with your thumb. So there you go. You can twist the hair into the wire like the group was saying, or something like a clothespin. So all sorts of ways. Steve is asking if you can smooth down flyaways with hair gel or paste. Like after you've done the weaving?
Yeah, rather than snipping them all off and potentially leaving, a fuzzy flower, could you smooth them down with some sort of hair product?
I don't you can certainly try. I won't stop you from trying and reporting back. I can't imagine that would be strong enough if it's just like one. I mean, I guess that's what I use the nail polish for. So that might be similar, but I just imagine it has a better hold. Okay, so going back to how to put the petals together, you are going to be connecting your GIMP into like a type of loop, type of petal shape. I haven't quite done this one. Finish this one, but that's okay. I wish I could see my own camera. So you'll connect it into like a petal shape like that. Actually doing mine the other way for this piece. And then you should most likely have a bit of wire hanging off of it. If you don't, that's okay. Just cut a new strand of wire and attach it. And so you'll kind of pinch it all together and wrap that wire around the bottom. Again, the bottom won't be seen, so that's a nice bit of leeway you have where it doesn't all have to be perfect. So you're gonna just kind of get all those loose hairs tied up in that wire toward the bottom of your petal. You can shape your petal however you'd like. And then it's gonna be kind of contained toward the bottom. And that's where you can trim. And I just did not do nail polish on this one, and it's fine. Like, you maybe don't even need nail polish. Look, there you go. I'm learning after 8 years in. I like to use nail polish as a bit of a security measure, but I don't think it's necessary. So you can trim your extra bits here. I would leave one long piece of wire, and that way you can start connecting your petals. So then if you have several, maybe take your next petal and just twist those bottoms together so they're attached, if that makes sense.
Sandra, what did you do with the starting loop? Do you just leave that there?
I usually leave it there, but if you feel that it's in the way, you could trim it partially, like cut the loop part off. I have done that sometimes, depending what I'm making. But I usually just use that and I twist it. Like there's going to be that loop on one side and the 2 pieces of wire and some extra hair on the other side. And I just twist those all together.
Okay.
Whether you're wrapping one of the wires around all of that or you're just twisting them, those both work.
Okay.
And then you'll have, you want to trim off the excess because it's just going to get in the way a bit. But you can also do that at any point.
And that's what you do with the ends of your hair too. Then you twist that into the wire.
Twist it into the wire, and then if there's some sticking out, you can cut that off because at that point it's going to be quite secure.
Okay.
And the one thing that I noticed too when you mentioned it is when you wrap it and you have the wire to make your petal where the wire's on the inside versus the wire on the outside. It really does give different looks. It's a really neat thing because the one where the wire's on the outside, it really defines it. And then where you let the loops be on the outside, it kind of lets it be a little bit more flowy and whimsical. It's nice.
Exactly. So I've got 2 different examples here. The white flower is the wire on the outside. It's silver wire, so it's a little harder to see. And then you have that very, this client wanted a daisy look and she wanted to be very accurate. So the exact daisy petal shape, whereas this one is the wire on the inside. And so the loops are on the outside.
So I have wire on both sides. What did I do wrong?
No, you've got it on the inside. You did. That looks perfect. That looks absolutely perfect.
Okay.
So that's where the wire is on the inside of the petal loop.
Oh.
So that's not wrong at all.
Look at this. That's on the outside. The wire's on the outside versus the loop on the inside. I don't know if you can see that either.
Oh, how would you even do that?
So you wrap it the opposite way.
Oh,
yeah, it's just one way or the other.
It makes it look a different.
Yeah. Okay.
And if the wire's on the outside, it's going to be a slightly smaller petal because that's like the length of it. And then you're kind of squishing the loops in, but not a big difference. Okay. Anything else? So yeah, you're adding your petals together. So if you have two petals like this and you have sort of the wire and hair at the bottom, you can just kind of twist them together or start by using the wire from one and wrap it around the other. And you kind of keep adding petals as you go around your flower. You could start with the center. No, I think with a button, you want to put it at the end. If you had maybe it kind of depends, but I'd say put it in at the end. Put the button in at the end.
How did you all count your hairs out and collect them? Because I've spent all afternoon with a piece of tape counting out 40 hairs, and it took hours.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if there's an easier way to do it.
I Googled how big is a bundle of 40 hairs, and it said about the thickness of a piece of spaghetti. So I just estimated. But then as a result, ours are all slightly,
they're a little bit big, but you know, it's okay.
They're big. Okay. This is great feedback. I estimate, so I'm sorry, Saskia. That sounds terrible. You can
Mine's
estimate.
all right. I've been saving my hairbrush hair for months and months and months.
Oh, well, that's a bit different because you do need to count them out then. If they're all in a mess, then you have to do that. Okay, I feel less bad then. That the fact that people, and historically they'd have the hair saver jars and they'd be putting their hair in there. They wouldn't only use them for hair work. They would sometimes just like stuff little bags with them and make their hair more voluminous. It was called hair rats, but
pin cushions.
Yes, they also did pin cushions. Exactly. But to imagine having to count hairs like that, like, I don't think I would not have the patience to do this. Like if clients hand me that, I'm charging like double. Like it's so much work. I much prefer to work from like a haircut ponytail that's like just ready to go, because it's a huge amount of work to count hairs.
Because with my hair braiding table, I've done the same thing with that, even though it's hair extensions, but you're saying just cut some and guess.
That's what I do as an impatient person.
Okay.
Like, and again, as the folks said, if it's estimation, like a strand of spaghetti, like I'll use that in a future workshop to try to help the instructions be more clear. I just eyeball it. Yeah. And it might just be with practice, it's easy to do that. And you might get the odd, like you want your petals to be consistent, probably on the same flower. So however you can
purchase a jar from which you are cutting hair, they come out in they have like little strands or a certain amount of hair, so we just cut tufts.
Nice.
So we totally cheated.
Yeah,
but perfect.
Some ladies from a Monster High, I think it's called.
And you can't even tell, they still look great.
They do.
Yeah, I counted my first two bunches, and then after that, it was like, okay, that much. Just sort of peeled off. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You may count the first one, then you have your template, and then you just go from there.
So another thing too is because of the size and the shape and stuff, I'm guessing the 26 gauge wire, you could mess around with it though, I'm sure, right? And
absolutely
kind of do bigger skewers or thinner, no, probably not thinner wire, but probably maybe you could go with thicker wire and just kind of play around with stuff, right? And just because it's all going to give different looks, right?
Absolutely. So in the list of supplies, I gave like the most normal options, but there's no rules, whatever works. As far as wire, I work with thinner. You can do smaller loops and thinner wire. The smaller the loop, the thinner the wire, obviously, because you just want to get that, closeness there, the tightness. Sometimes I work with a little, it's like a nail or maybe it's a darning needle. That's the smallest I do. So very tiny loops. I've tried that with the 26 gauge wire, and I find that sometimes the loops pop out because you just can't get a tight enough connection. So yeah, I use 28 gauge wire. I think that's the smaller because I think it goes up right with the thinner wire. I use thicker wire for almost like building other parts of the pieces sometimes. Like if you're making a stem of a flower and you want to wrap it in embroidery thread or your, structure of your wreath, I have some really thick wire or just connecting different pieces together. There's different uses for different wire and size of wire. And then Diane has suggested, she said, the best tool I have for hair sorting is a light pad so I can see the hairs better. And I use one of those wax pencils used for diamond painting to pick up the individual hairs. So if you want to get into hair counting, there you go. Kat is asking, how do you bunch them again? Like a bunch of flowers, twist all together and then spread the petals out. You can do that if it works. Like I usually start with one petal, then I'll add the next, then I'll put two next to each other and twist them together. And then I'll add another one and use the wire from that and twist it around. But you could sort of just grab them all, 5, twist them all, and then spread them out if that works for you too.
And then you can trim off the wire tails and put on your button.
Exactly. And depending if you want to make a larger piece, you might not want to trim off the wire tails and see if you need those to connect them to something later. It just depends, but
okay.
But yes, if you just want a nice little flower, sometimes I kind of curl it around. So the back of this flower, it's quite bulky, but I'll probably end up just kind of twisting it around at the end. You want to make sure you don't cut off so much that the wire unravels again.
Okay.
But the good thing is if you do, then you just add some more wire. It's fairly flexible as far as all that. Okay. It's pretty durable. It's pretty, it's hard to, it won't break if you drop it. It's all pretty good.
So would you use brass wire for blonde hair and silver wire for gray hair? And
yeah, I tend to like black. That's my personal preference. But it depends on the look. So obviously for my commissions, I'll ask my clients. The black is gonna really stand out with blonde hair. So it depends if you want that look or if you want it to blend in, then you can use a gold, use a silver, etc. But yeah, whatever the artist thinks is best. And then you can, Jeanette said she used gold wire with silver hair. That sounds absolutely beautiful. There's going to be on some pieces, you might want to make a stem. So here's an example. This is one I did, and I have teeth in the center. And this this black part here is wire that I've wrapped with embroidery thread. So historically, you'll see sewing thread, embroidery thread, or hair itself that you can use to wrap these stems. So I usually do embroidery thread. I find that to be the easiest. And I like the look, but you can do whatever works. But here I did a green, just for fun with more teeth. So whatever makes sense. And this is an example of the thicker flowers, the thicker petals. Diane is very good at these. I used her guidance to try to work on my thicker petals because I find them very difficult. But if you want to go check out her tutorials because they're great.
For the dog hair, Sandra, for the dog hair pictures, did they dye some of that hair? Because it looked like it was blue.
There was a blue flower that I showed earlier, but that was just like a wig hair. I can go back to my present. Do you mean in the presentation I showed?
Yeah, and you said that they used dog hair and they made, I think it was flat work maybe.
Yeah, I don't think it was blue. I'll go back and see it. That was stuff that I made in those pictures.
Maybe it just looked blue, but it was black or something like that.
It could be. Let's go back. Why not? Sorry, I should have moved my PowerPoint before I did that. And yes, please share pictures of your work in the chat. Or I was thinking it'd be nice. I would love to share something on my Instagram account too. I'll share my contact information in the chat as well. If you want to send me pictures later and you'd like me to share it, I'd love to do a little post about it. I don't know if you're thinking of that. That's blue.
Nope.
Okay.
More towards the end.
This was the pet hair. So this is gray. So it may be looking blue just because of the screen, but the bottom of the heart here and the outside of the pot is gray hair. So these are ways to use multiple colors of, dogs and cats have multiple colors. It's a nice way to show all the different colors you can use. But if you find a blue dog, I can make a blue dog memorial.
So you don't dye hair ever to do things. You use just what's there.
I just use what's there. I think if the client dyed their dog's hair and sends it to me, I will be happy to use it, but I wouldn't dye it myself. And so if I chop this up finely, that's how I do the pet hair. I've tried other ways, and this is what I found works best for the best consistent result.
Okay.
You had mentioned somebody else with the thicker petals. Did you mention somebody else's name?
Oh, Diane Irby. She's on here, and she is.
Okay.
Diane, feel free to share your Instagram and TikTok and all that. It's really fun learning from other hair workers now that they exist, or that we found each other at least. At the beginning, when I started this, it was not when I'm sure they were all out there doing their thing, but now we've kind of found each other online, so it's very cool. Yeah, I was just gonna say the flat work here is the human hair, and that's you can see the hair, the individual hair. So I do use the hair and lay it out and then cut it and glue it and cut it. So it's a bit of a different technique. You can do this with some animals if the dog hair is long enough, but I also find that it depends on the individual animal's hair. So I want to be careful what I promise to clients, because I always say, we might need to change things a bit once I see the hair in person. Once it's mailed to me, it's never usually a problem, but I have done 1 or 2 commissions where I've done the actual pet hair laid out flat, but it often just doesn't work with the texture of the hair. So it's kind of interesting because every single creature is unique in how their piece will end up and what's best for their piece.
I was curious to know too how they braided. At the beginning of your presentation, you showed some of the, and they braid it. And I know you talked about table braiding. How do they make the spaces in those pieces? Can you show us at the beginning of your presentation today?
Yeah, I can show you the picture. I cannot speak to exactly how. I believe they use a spacer, but that is the technique I don't do. So I can't speak exactly to it, but I will go to the picture. Okay. And if anyone else on here knows any more details, feel free to share. Looking beautiful for people sharing their pictures. Good job, Kristen. I love seeing that. Okay. Okay, there it is. Sorry. So yeah, a lot of these, that
one. How did that get the spaces in it?
Yeah.
That Historical Society of Montgomery County.
I can't tell you exactly, unfortunately, because I do not do this type. But yeah, I believe there's some sort of piece that you put in as a spacer that holds the shape as you braid, but I can't get into specifics. There are Zen Hansen at Hair Anthropology does amazing table braiding, and she could answer that question. I'm trying to think of other
so that's braiders. Definitely table braiding then.
It is, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, some of them are the dense chains that you kind of see on the other picture, though the bracelet there is also the spaced one.
Okay. Thank you.
So the table braiding is the tripod with the round table on top and a hole.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, and Mementos and Twine does table braiding as well. She's really great. Oh, beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Clary. It's one of your pieces. That's gorgeous. Love the color. Like a peach.
Oh, dices. Okay. The tubular ones, they are braided around a form. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's what I vaguely meant. I mean, if you want to read Mark Campbell's guide, it probably says it in, oh, does it though? It may. He has a lot of patterns. That's from 1867. It was a very popular guide. Though again, I find it challenging. That 4 family members in that piece that Clary shared, that's amazing. I will share my handle and my email. I'm sure we can send that out in a follow-up email as well. Happy to answer questions going forward. You come back to it and have a question.
It's pretty.
There we go. Mark Campbell does have tubular patterns. Right. Diane is saying the tubular ones keep their shape because they're boiled and oven dried before removed from the form. So they get really firm on there. It's amazing that like you can hardly tell it's hair, right? When you're looking at these pictures. Is it okay if I grab some of these pictures of stuff you've done to share, guys? I want your permission. If you shared them, let me know. And you can send them to me later too. Beautiful. See, there you go. You got different sizes. I like that you've used like a string, right? And then it's a nice, easy way to start. And then you got the technique and then you can, oh, beautiful. JV, did you create those? Beautiful. This is great. I love seeing all these. Yes, please everyone share your handles. I want to make sure. So anyone have any other questions? We still have time, but just if you want to go over anything.
And again, it is being recorded. I will send out the recording to all of the registrants. And so we are going to keep the recording private. Obviously, Sandra does, make a living off of this. And so I think, if you want to share it, please get her permission. But at least you can go through the tutorial again. Oh, more questions.
Okay, I'm just going down and looking. Okay, so yes, and if anyone has to head off, thank you so much for being here. Okay, so questions about attaching the petals and attaching the buttons. So if you have your petals, take your first petal, that's like your base petal, and then your next petal, put it next to it, and take the wire from that petal and wrap it around so that they are connected. And then just keep doing that. Add another petal next to it, take the wire from it, wrap it around until you have filled your flower. And then what I would do for a button is, like on this one, take your wire, take a piece of wire and wrap it through the buttonholes, and then you'll have and twist it, kind of like the original pieces of wire we created. And then once it's attached, you can basically stick it through the center. So just find a place where the wire can go through. Maybe you cut one of the wires off, so you're just dealing with one wire. Stick it through the center or between one of the petals, wrap it around to fasten it, and it should stay on there. It's a little bit just what works as far as using the wire to attach the pieces.
What kind of clip is on that one that you gave an example of?
This is just a basic sort of, I don't know what you call these, just a little, there's a word for them, I don't know if like alligator clip or something, but all I did was attach it with wire. It's done fairly, this is one of my earlier pieces. I just wrapped wire around it to attach it. I'm actually working with a very talented hair worker and jeweler, Brenda Zach of Wild Carrot Hair Work, and she does jewelry for hair workers. So to make a nice, actual nice clip that attaches to hair work properly. But you can really do anything. Just grab some cheap things and use wire to attach it. I used to glue them, but that's not a good idea. I don't recommend it. Don't add extra glue to these pieces because that's where hair can get stuck in the glue and can tear, and then it's kind of done. So that's why I shy away from a lot of different from glue, but wire usually works to add most things. I'll grab the one example here. This is the piece she designed for me. So it's specially made to have little holes to add wire to attach to a hair piece so that can then go in your hair.
Well, you can definitely tell which one was the first one.
That's great. Love it.
Yeah, it's just getting down to a rhythm.
Exactly.
And I did all those just by hand. I didn't have a big enough clamp. So that will be the first thing to look for.
Well, some people never use a clamp. That's the thing. But if you think it'll improve you, then go for it.
So if you got some pre-glued strips, hanks, ahead of time, how do you store them to keep them from getting all tangled up?
I like to use, mine is a bit messy right now. I like to use one of these guys. It's like a cutlery drawer.
Cutlery drawer? Okay.
Yeah. But anything like a box, as long as it's long enough, or just put it in an empty drawer, something like that. But yeah, you don't want to, they do get tangled if you lose track of them. So.
Somebody wants to know how you attach the teeth.
Oh yeah. How I attached the teeth was a little not complicated. So these teeth were my brother's and mine. Don't know. My mom did not label them. I'll forgive her, but she found them and I was like very excited about that. What I did was I twisted a little ball of wire and then I stuck that little ball of wire attached to a longer wire. Like I twisted the end of a piece of wire, stuck that into the tooth along with this glue so that I could then have teeth on pieces of wire. And I also needed to fill the teeth with glue because every single one broke in half almost, or was about to. I also covered them with nail polish on the top for the same reason. I tried using this glue on the top, but it did not look good. So that's my adventure with teeth so far. But because they're hollow, there's an opportunity to stick something in them. So it's actually really good. Okay, sorry, I was saving people's pictures. Looks great.
I think we'll try to wrap up here pretty quick. If you have any pictures you want to post quick for Sandra to grab and spread out to her community, which is probably larger than our hair community.
Yeah, take a look
at your wares.
It's great. Yeah. Please send me more pictures if you're not quite done. I shared my email there, or send to, I'm sure Allison can pass them along or whatever. But thank you guys all so much for joining. It is very fun to chat with people who are interested in this, and I hope it wasn't too stressful. Don't be hard on yourself if it was. Come back to it another day. Reach out for any other questions.
Yeah, this has been great because I've been looking for this kind of information for years. And with just the old catalogs and magazines, I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, it is hard. I always want to give a shout out to the artist who I learned from when I was searching the internet is Kat Auburn. I believe she's in New Zealand, and she works with horsehair, and she's done some amazing large scale installations with worked horsehair in honor of horses that have died in war and all sorts of things. So very grateful to her because I found this video. She'd just been doing a workshop for like a summer camp of like 12-year-old kids, and I found it, and it was my entryway because I did try to find some other sources that were written and they weren't working for me. So. That's beautiful, Amy.
Thank you.
Over on a different one. Now that I know. I cannot figure out how to get out of here.
Last couple minutes to share your wonderful creations. And don't forget to look up on our YouTube for university museums. It is just recently posted last week, Sandra's lecture on the trajectory of hair art. And it really is an interesting lecture because it highlights some of your local to you hair work.
That's the thing about local.
Yep. Just making clear it wasn't local to Ames, Iowa.
Yeah, but that would be great. That's the thing. There's local gems to be found everywhere. That's the lesson.
Well, and we certainly appreciate all of you joining us. Again, you'll get the email with the link. Just give me a few days to process it. And we're a small shop here, so it takes us a little bit. But I again really appreciate Sandra's instruction for both the lecture and today's workshop. She's very patient, which patience of Job. I think that's the thing. And again, you can follow her on Instagram, and I think she's TikTok. Is that right?
I'm there. Yeah.
Yep. Facebook, all the things.
Yeah.
And make sure you support some of these other artists that we had on here too, and follow them as well. Again, we appreciate it, and I'm going to bid you all adieu and have a lovely and hairy evening.
Oh.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sandra.
My pleasure.